Do Good Work Podcast, hosted by Terrell Strayhorn and Jaquin Johnson. We specialize in taking a deep dive into issues that truly matter. Each episode unpacks the challenges and opportunities facing today's leaders, from classrooms to boardrooms, offering insights that inspire real change. By redefining success, we're changing lives, empowering people everywhere to create environments where everyone feels a sense of belonging, whether at home, work, or school. So hey, sit back, relax, grab your favorite beverage, and join us as we explore the issues shaping our futures, one meaningful conversation at a time. Let's go!
Hello, welcome back to Do Good Work Podcast. I'm your co-host, joined in the studio by my co-host, Jaquin J Squared. And we are so delighted to have you with us here on Sunday, November 9th for what promises to be an exciting episode. So get ready to tell folks, tune in. Podcast is going live. You know how to do it. Like and share all across your networks and platforms. We are excited to have you with us this evening. Kick it over to Jaquin. How you doing?
Doing well. Good to see you again. Another Sunday. Do Good Work Podcast. So we like to start our show off with, we're calling now a good word. So we got Strayhorn, we got Johnson, S, and J. We also always invite you all to play the game as well. So you can type it in the chat and whip it on the screen. So go first, Terrell S.
I am going to go with my good word of the week is share. I have been sharing quite a bit, sharing thoughts, sharing, good news, sharing wisdom, sharing my feelings and thoughts and aspirations with people, friends, family. And it's also that time of year with, my family, we celebrate Thanksgiving as a November holiday. And so it's a Thanksgiving kind of time. It's a good time for sharing, giving. So I'll go with share for this evening. And while I kick it over to you, I'm going to share the link with some folks. So your word starts with J.
I knew that do the same thing as well. I think I can multitask. I've been commended for that before. J, Johnson. So I would go with, jolly. This week has, I think, went pretty fast. It was Friday before I even knew it. But a lot of good work is happening. Some upcoming events are coming, such as the the masterclass with Will Strayhorn on Tuesday, talking about personal and professional image. So we'll put that in the chat. Want you all to join us. It's going to be an exciting conversation with Will. I think he has the poise method that he created. He's going to share those things with us. Again, it's on Tuesday, virtually on Zoom. We also have Education Leaders Summit at Virginia Union University in person. We'll drop that link in there as well if you are able to attend. Again, a lot of the things that we're doing professionally and personally are really good work. We also going to Japan. Well, we're not going to Japan anymore because Japan conference is on Thanksgiving Day. And I don't believe either of our families would be proud that we skipped Thanksgiving and went to Japan, although it is related to our work. So, but all in all, busy, but happy with the work that we're doing.
Yeah. So there it is. We've got Jolly. We've got share. What words do you all have? Starts with the first letter of your last name, usually, although some people have been telling me you've been using your first name. Drop it in the chat. We'll put it on the screen for you and get it shared. And as was mentioned, I'll pull it back up just so we can make sure that you can join us. Mark your calendars on Tuesday, November 11th. We've got a master class with Will Strayhorn It's the poise method. So if you are out there listening and you're thinking about either your personal image or professional image, trying to think about personal branding, this is the day and age of gig economy, where everybody wants to have their own gig, their own jam, their own website, their own social media handles. And they're trying to advance not only companies, but themselves. If you are looking for some insights about how to start that journey for yourself, that is to step out into the big deep, launch your own, thinking about branding, imaging, all of that, scan the QR code that is on the screen, or we'll put it in the chat. Sign up and register for Tuesday's masterclass. It's free and open to the public. And so you want to make sure that you are there, and I'm sure you won't regret it. All right. So back over here, home at the ranch. Let me see if I can pull up the registration link while multitasking. But we typically go from this part of our episode into a segment talking about those who are re-entering the workforce. And quite frankly, I think we should do that because I shared with you last week, Jaquin, that I was reading some report that talked about the number. Well, actually, I think it was shortly after our show. It might have been the day of our show last week, because of the continued shutdown of the federal government. SNAP benefits were stalled for many, many, many Americans. And so thinking about those who depend on SNAP benefits for food, for their next meal, for, that in between blessings time between check A and check B, the single moms, single dads, little kids, those who are working and living with disabilities, I thought we might find a way to encourage those who are out there feeling kind of beat up a bit by the system right now. And of course, the government still is not open, but news reports suggest there's been some progress. So, I think one of the things that I would offer is for anyone who's in need, it's a very generic kind of wisdom, is don't be afraid to ask for help. So I was watching this segment about SNAP benefits, and they had some famous actress who was talking about the fact that before she became a famous actress making, a lot of money, she depended on public assistance, SNAP benefits, in order to raise her kids. And she was talking to people about the fact that, like, let's just create a space where people can be open and honest about needing help and assistance. And everyone's had moments where they need, a blessing, whether it's, they need food assistance, they need housing assistance, they need rent assistance, they need, discount clothes at a thrift store or a consignment shop, or they've had to reach out to family for, to round out some dollars for a bill. Anyone who's out there feeling that way, don't allow your thoughts to become too heavy and dark, feeling like, you're the only, or somehow this is a reflection on you and your inadequacy and you're not worthy. No, everybody needs help. Everybody needs assistance, and you'll get through this. Don't be afraid to ask for help first is my first piece. My second piece is that even without SNAP benefits readily available, although we need to fix that, government's got to open, we got to get the help out for people need. I also think that we can think about the fact that there are food banks and clothing closets and thrift stores and consignment shops and, social service agencies, child and family services. These are all government agencies. Of course, the government agencies would be closed, but many of these nonprofit agencies, and I want to say it because it's Sunday, lots of churches offer this kind of support. So if you are looking, it's getting cool outside, depending on where you are in the world, and you need a coat, need some clothes, need some shoes, need some socks, reach out. And if you can't find the right place, find Do Good Work on one of our social media platforms, jump in our DM, and we will try our best to connect you to some social service agency in your area or region. Anything you'd add, Jaquin?
Yeah, I mean, you covered it pretty well. I think one thing I will kind of add to that this conversation, but on the flip side of it, is the people who are in position to help. If you know someone who is in need, um, and know what they need, lend a hand, whether it is food, clothes, or if you know someone who can help them, pass the baton over to them so they can assist. Um, yeah, again, I think that what we're going through right now is tragic. It is unfortunate, but at the end of the day, your word is share this week, and I think that if we have that in mind, understanding that we can share what we know or what we have, we can get through it all together.
Awesome. And I love the way you flip that, because we can even flip it even further and say, if you are out there listening and you know of a place, you know of a website, you know of your church, you know of a group, drop it in the chat. We'll put it on the platform. We'll also make sure we share it out on different platforms this week. If you know of places that are available for people who right now are just in sort of dire need. And I won't, one of our followers, one of our audience members told me, when we start getting preachy, they love it. We won't preach too hard. But to our elected officials, one word. It's the longest government shutdown in history at this point. And I understand that we have differences of opinion, and all of us sit in various places on political issues, across the aisle, on the aisle, right in the middle, far left, far right. And in a democracy, I want to respect that. Everybody doesn't think the same, nor should they. But at some point, we've got to be able to reach a level of consensus for the good of the people. That's what makes democracy work. It's for the people, by the people. And when we are so divided that we cannot reach consensus, that is, that each side gives and takes and has some compromise, but has some non-negotiables, we model for our next generation what polarization looks like. That it's okay to, stick your feet in the ground and be unmovable, unshakable, unchangeable. And that's just not realistic. We often, do this ourselves. That is, did you go? Okay.
Oh, sorry.
But we often do this ourselves where, we'll have a disagreement and we will realize we're not getting anywhere if we don't budge. Like, doesn't mean that you want to, you want everything in its totality. But for the good of the cause, the good of resolution, the good of solution, you figure out what your non-negotiables are. Everything can't be a non-negotiable. That's unrealistic, right? But everything can't be a compromise. That's unfair. So then you figure out through compromise, and I know this is like life one-on-one, politics one-on-one, but when we get so divided and so separate that we allow this to last and fester and fester and fester, to where single moms and single dads and military vets and those with disabilities and those who are raising kids with disabilities and those who are living with chronic illnesses are without the support that they need. I think that's when we got to realize, okay, it's time to, something is already broken. It's time to start fixing it. So if you are an elected official, local, state, federal, please, let's reach a resolution. Let's reopen the government. Let's give the American people what they deserve. That's not a political statement. That's because it's hard to do good work. Apex of the triangle, when you are hungry, when you are tired, when you can't go see the doctor, when you don't have your medical insurance, when you can't get your SNAP benefits, when you can't, what I'm saying? Like, it's unrealistic. And we just know from all of the groups we get to work with every single week in our research and our writing and our speaking and the podcast, they're the folks who need it the most. So those who don't need it are privileged to not care about this right now. But those who need it most are feeling that pinch. And, it'd be, I think, irresponsible to have a platform, have a show and not say something about it.
I totally agree. I think that the work that we do, we get to hear these stories so often and write about them, fortunately, to give voice. I think this is another form of that as well with our podcast, to share what we've learned and what we've heard. And it's, it's really, it's not our story, it's the people's story, and we're trying to share that. But I do believe that, as you said, you know, air, food, water, sleep is one of our basic fundamental needs. And without that, you cannot focus on work. You can't focus on finding a job. You can't focus on the task at hand because you're so preoccupied and trying to figure out ways to feed your family, feed yourself, um, have water to bathe and clean. There are so many other things that take priority over, um, work. So again, I think that, as you said, we ask public officials to do their very best to work together, to ensure that folks get what they need and their needs are met, so they can be in better positions.
Awesome. And we got some new words coming in. One word, Dr. Whitty says, my word of the week is welcome. And is that whoop?
Whooped.
I think it's whoop.
Whoop.
Not wop. No, whoop. Oop is oop. Okay. And we got another word from Kimmy. Hushed. Uh-oh.
Okay. I have to say the same thing, Kim. That is not your last name, so we got to talk.
That is her last name, Harris.
Child.
Yeah.
Let me stop talking. Okay, go ahead. Next.
She got you hushed. All right, so let's get into it. How's your week been? Things that have been on your mind this week. What you've been thinking about doing? Your light looks better than mine.
Stay over there. No, stay over there.
It ain't no ring light because you didn't have one of those.
No, I got my my phone propped up with the light on.
Okay, I'm trying to see what I can do over here.
How was my week? Like I said earlier, it kind of got away from me. There are some tasks that I needed to complete. I think 3 weeks behind, and you know this, so I got to get that done. Well, I've been working on it, so that's good, but still behind. There's another project I have to do, a review for grants that needs to be completed before tomorrow morning. So again, I'm not complaining. I have no real complaints at all in my life currently. But at the end of the day, there's work that needs to be done. Buckle it down to get those things done. But I also feel in a space where I'm very content. Haven't felt tightness in my chest. Haven't had any clammy hands. But I will say there have been some folks who have been testing me this week. But I think I've done a really good job in managing those emotions and addressing them appropriately. So all in all, a lot of wins. Events that we've had in the past, we have really good turnout rates. Where the event we have coming up this Saturday, we worked extremely hard on communications to make sure people understand when the event is, when the doors open, how to register, where to park, how to get to the campus, all those things. This is exciting work because it's important work. And there are people that we have coming on campus. We have Will coming on, doing a masterclass via Zoom. All these things I see clearly that it's going to help many people. So as we said earlier today while we were on screen, I am truly blessed and excited to continue to do these things as they come up.
So people tested you this week. You remember any of the trying situations?
Well, there's one. I think that, one thing that we often talk about in life is communication. And although we express that we want to be a good communicator, we want people to communicate to us, to be informed, to make wise decisions. Without that, it's hard to make a wise decision. But people don't communicate. People just don't communicate. I mean, I think people make decisions unilaterally, and then you found out in a meeting and you're like, wait, what? When did this happen? And now you're pivoting, you're trying to be as agile as possible, but also be a team player, address the situation, but not be harsh and rude. Try to be understanding of their role and their situation, what they were thinking, and also explain to them your role and why it's important for you all to talk about the situation at hand and the decision that's going to be made, because without everyone that is involved being aware of what's going on, then we have a lot of things that fall through the crack. And I think it causes unnecessary tension, friction, and dilemma. And not to mention, okay, yeah, it's going to get me to my second point. Stop lying on people that are not in the room. I think that if you made a mistake or if you did something and you dropped the ball, and when you're asked about it, just say you dropped the ball. Take accountability. I think people respect you more and are willing to work with you when you just say, yeah, I did that and I made a mistake, versus putting the blame on someone else and people finding out that it was not them. I think we talked about on previous episodes, and when we go out and speak in our writing, we talk about trust and the 3 elements of trust. And trust is hard to gain, but it's easy to lose, child. It is so easy to lose. I was in a meeting, and luckily I was there, because I do truly believe the blame would have been placed on me if I wasn't in the room. And because I was there, the blame was placed on somebody else. But one thing I do like, I like a lot of things about technology, but this is one thing that I truly enjoy about it, is that some technology timestamps and shows you who did what and when. And it's important for us to not just take someone's word and keep it moving, leaders, but to investigate, what's been told to you, and try to figure out, like, who is the responsible one, and making sure that they are held accountable.
Yeah. It's like, well, you brought up a couple points: workplace communication, essentially, but also the issue of blame, trust, and then just basically the power of receipts. Why you got to keep up with all these receipts of, when you sent, who said. It shouldn't have to be that way, but we talked about trust a little bit last week. I think it was, well, whether you give trust or you build trust. And for a lot of people, trust is built. It's not given. And it's hard to build because, like you said, it's so easily denied or broken or violated. I was thinking about it yesterday. Went to a football game, and I was just thinking, when people say things like, hey, so I want to tell you something and I haven't told anybody else, right? And then you have that information. 2 things. What causes the person who told you, I want to say, to entrust it to you, right? But usually that's just not true. You go down the street and you found another person who already knows. They say, I'm telling you. It means I haven't told a lot of people. Rarely is it the case that you're the only person that they've told, right? You're one of 5, right? And so that's one, is like, when we have stuff that we want to hold, what causes us or compels us as humans to give it to some people? And then for the people who have it, what causes us to give it to some of the other people, right? So it's like, hey, Jaquin, so I'm going to tell you this, but Kathy told me, do not tell anyone, so don't tell a soul. And then I tell you. And that's exactly how all of the things you're talking about start happening, right? Trust gets unraveled because I hope you'll hold it. I know you will hold it in my case, right? But what if you tell Mark, and now you're trusting Mark to hold it? By the time Mark holds it, Kathy knows I've told. And so it's just interesting how these things happen. That's the first, about trust and keeping it. And I'm just not also sure, like, what is happening in the workplace such that we've got to have all these secrets? Like, wouldn't it be okay for me to say, hey, Jaquin, Kathy told me when you called her out in the meeting the other day, it hurt her feelings. As a friend and as a coworker to her, I think the 2 of you should come together and talk about it. and you say, really? She feels that way? Okay, would you be comfortable with me telling her you told me? I'd be like, yeah, because I want peace in the workplace. Tell her. Versus all of that, because it's by the time you the what is it, yarn ball starts forming, you can't hold it together. So at some point, some little thread is going to be somebody going to pull it and it's going to fall apart. I think that's the first piece that's on my mind. And then the second one you mentioned is about blame. And I just, again, Pollyanny-ish and optimistic. I wish we could have workplaces where we just didn't strive to look for blame. You know, maybe it's just a sense of accountability and responsibility. Everybody take responsibility for what you do. And otherwise, we're going to keep it moving. So I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. No one I've worked with has been perfect. So I think we should all get along fine. It's going to be some days y'all are going to have to forgive me. I'm going to have to forgive y'all. We're going to have to forgive some clients. Our clients are going to have to forgive us. You know, I know this. We win 8.5 or 9 out of 10. We ain't dropping balls left and right. But yeah, you know, I don't know if you know it, but today I put a post out about the summit and put the wrong date. I put Saturday, November 11th. Somebody texted me and said, I'm about to share this, but you got the wrong date. You know, oh my gosh. I said, hey, thank you. Fixed it. Now you can share it. I was doing 5 things at once. I'm not perfect. And in fact, I used to kick myself and, you know, beat myself up and want to close my laptop and say, I'll try again tomorrow. But then 1, you lose so much time with that. And 2, it's just, that's unrealistic. That is so unfair to yourself. You got to give yourself grace, as we talk about, right? And bet on yourself. Like, I know this, I got that wrong. That post was wrong. I had to fix it. But I had 4 quizzes and I got good grades. Mm-hmm. I'll take it. 4 out of 5. You know what I'm saying? It's like
4 out of 5.
I'm not going to look for, oh my gosh, you know what? When I was writing that post, I was on screen with Jaquin and Jaquin was distracting me. So Jaquin is to blame. I'm not doing that. 1, I'm looking for the path of quick resolution, quick fix, right? Versus any sort of blame. And I wondered, would that work in work spaces and some of the work context you were talking about?
I think one thing we have to do is like, what pick it up what I put down. There's a lot of variables that we have to consider. I think one is our experiences, right? I think that many people have experienced a time or times when they were responsible for something and it was uncovered and someone else's response was not desirable or favorable, right? So they have learned to find a way to put up a shield or hide what their mistakes. And so that's one. I think that, you know, some of these behaviors are, I believe they're learned. I think they're learned because of their experiences and they don't want to go through that again. And what's the other point you made? You said, and I think because of that, you know, people just want to be perfect. They want to always get it right. And I know from my experiences, I've had people when I made a mistake, they tear you down, they talk behind your back, they say you are incompetent. There's maybe a future project that you don't get because of that one minor mistake. Mm-hmm. And I had to learn to unpack my response to when I make a mistake, because I used to be someone who I would beat myself up. I will make myself smaller. I will get extremely upset with myself because I made a mistake. And I took that to do good work when I first started with the team. Is like, you know, I remember making a mistake and it was I'm not trying to pat do good work on the back at all, but I guess I am. But I mean, you know, there was a time early on when I made a mistake and I was like petrified. I was like, man, I'm about to get fired today. People are going to start to hate me. And it was the exact opposite, right? It was like, okay, make a mistake. Hey, okay, what do we have to do to fix it? And the team together, we fixed it and we kept, it was like, fix it. This was the mistake. Hey, this is what you need to do moving forward. If you don't know, just ask somebody. It's not It's okay to ask, and then let's get the job done. Because the thing is, we are better together. And I think that's something we always say, like, we are better together, and we do a lot of projects together. But I also, like, what I've learned through the work is that a lot of people believe they have to do things on their own independently to shine, or be the star. And when they make a mistake, they do their very best to point blame or find a way to hide it.
Well, I mean, I'm glad you said that. So I'll pick up what you put down, right? Because we had it. This is how our day started, right? Better together. And so we were inquiring about a conference, and we were like, what happened with that conference? Did our work get accepted? What happened? And we looked up the results today, and the results were less than favorable, which is a surprise. Again, it's not peacocking. It's just that, one, if you have good ideas and you do good work and you know how to put your work into writing, and you have good solid data, and we do, because people entrust us with their stories through interviews and with their lives through surveys. So we've got incredible data to talk about the variables that relate to belonging. And, when we collaborate, the word collaborate includes the phrase co-labor. When we labor together on something, undistracted, undivided, magic happens, right? But with those results, we were curious to the audience, like, what in the world happened? So both of us knew, no, something must have been off, because there's no way in the world that we would have submitted this and the feedback be basically the reviewer said, y'all not together. This is divided. This is choppy. This is not smooth. This is not complete. And sure enough, y'all, we went through our calendar, and that didn't tell us. So then we went through our text chat, and it revealed that there was a moment of what we were saying to the politicians earlier, conflict that needed to be worked out and resolved. And that meant we had to go to our separate corners and think through, what are our issues? What are our non-negotiables? What's the real issue? Whatever. Come back together, have that discussion, be disagree, but not be disagreeable, negotiate, reconcile, all of that. Unfortunately, that takes time to anybody who needs to hear that, right? You can't force that. You can't fake that. You can't fabricate it. You can nurture it. You can facilitate. It's like belonging. But you got to take your time. And then when it starts to get really tense again, you got to say, okay, let's put a pin, come back to it in 5 minutes, come back to go for a walk, come back to it, whatever. So point being, our text messages revealed the resolution happened after the deadline. And that's the cause for the jankiness of the writing. And what is my point? I wasn't actually even going to make this point, but it made itself. And that is, to any CEO, executive, team leader, manager, supervisor, business owner, teacher, educator, friend, collaborator, business partner, whatever out there, just understand that your best work can't happen when you're divided. Your best work can't happen when you don't have communication, when you got conflict, when you've allowed things that happened to you to cause you to be divided. Things should be happening to you, and you present a unified front in defending it, defeating it, resolving it. But often what happens in, all sorts of ships, business ships, partnerships, relationships, the force of that thing acting upon you divides you, and you start treating each other like your enemies. I'm not saying that I don't remember exactly what happened around that time. I mean, I do generally, but I don't think that was our approach. I'm just disappointed that, we didn't get to resolve it in time for the proposal to be solid. Because here's the other thing, pick up for someone who needs to hear it. Every single reviewer said, oh my gosh, this is a great idea. Oh my gosh, this is a cool project. No, this is a solid framing of belonging. But we won't get to talk to anybody about it because those two were rejected. So anybody who needs to hear it, workplace communication, home communication, life communication is critical. And I was just somewhere where we were talking about this. Oh, in class, conflict is inevitable. The one thing humans hate, they hate conflict. You ever heard that phrase? I hate conflict. I don't like conflict. I don't want any conflict. I don't like to be conflict. Conflict is inevitable because we're humans. Some of us are right-handed. Some of us are left-handed. Some of us are tall. Some of us are short. Some of us, believe the glass is half empty. Some of us believe the glass is half full. You put all that together, there's going to be difference and disagreement. So when we say, oh, I don't like conflict, I don't like challenge, I don't like discussion, you almost silence us and limit us to, make us immovable. What's much better to have is the posture of, I'm not trying to have a revolution and a war, but I'm up for spirited debate. I'm up for conversation. I love having conversation that's productive as long as it's going to help us reach resolution. So then we ask questions like, what did I do? Like today you were working, you were getting stressed a little bit. And so I think I could hear it in your voice. And I was like, hey, what's up? And you were like, I'm frustrated. And what did I do? I decided, be here, but don't keep asking questions. Be here, focus on what you're doing, fewer questions, silence. Not like I felt beat up by you. I just realized the space you were in. And I know you well enough to know that the more questions I ask or the more interruptions I make, it's only going to frustrate you further. So dial it back and redirect my energy to what I'm working on. And we still were pleasant and eventually came back in the conversation, but you had to focus on what was giving you. And I even asked you, oh, is it something I said? You can ask that question. And you said no. And that's all. That's a license I needed to say, okay, redirect. So sometimes I think at work, somebody says, how you doing? I'm fine. And you're like, oh gosh, they're mad at me. You don't know that they're mad at you. They might be mad because their bills are unpaid. They may be mad because they got to go to the dentist and have a root canal. You know what I'm saying? Like, ask them, everything okay? Did I do something? Is there anything I can do to help? And they say, no, I'm good. Then keep it moving. Stay up. Like we said today, another situation, I'll shut up. You said, we're not going to go down to their kind of negative energy. We're going to stay up and bring them up to our high energy. That's a choice, right? For anybody who's listening and those who will listen later, those who will share, it's a choice to shine light. It's a choice to stay up. It's a choice to fight. When they go low, you do go high. High means I'm just not going to give back what you giving me. I'm not going to put down what you're putting down. I'm not going to roll my eyes because you rolled your eyes. I'm not going to, give a sharp email back just because you. Now listen, I ain't perfect. There are some people who have tried me on email and I have sent a very strong email back. I want to talk about it because there's something you mentioned about technology, but even then I still talk to you sometimes and be like, hey, look at this email. Is it too strong? I want it strong. Do not make it not strong, but don't let me, torpedo them out the earth. And you'll be like, okay, take this part out, keep this part. Same thing I do, right? And then I'll send that because sometimes you do have to listen. You do have to teach people how to treat you. People will walk over you sometimes if you allow them. Some people will dismiss you from the table you deserve to be at if you allow them. Some people will, all sorts of things. I'm not going to preach, but sometimes you got to tell them like, no. I'm going to let you know. I'm very clear. Like I've had times where I write back and say, that's not a question, period. Next paragraph, right? Because I'll say something, people will write back and like, no, I don't want you to do that. I wasn't asking you if I was doing that. I was telling you I'm doing that. It's not a question. There's no question mark at the end of it, right? You got to help people understand. I'm very clear on my authority. I'm very clear on my roles and responsibilities. I'm just simply trying to keep you informed. And I think sometimes workplace communication requires this sort of double dutch of some, directed messages, but sometimes these more an attempt at compromise. I'll stop there.
Yeah, I don't know who told you not to preach, but get that out your mind and keep going. But I think that you make a really you brought up a good example. It's the opposite of kind of what we talk about. It's the other side of it is that Terrell and I disagree. And I'm just gonna leave it at that. We disagree. We don't see eye to eye all the time. There are times where, unfortunately our disagreements do happen around a major deadline. And it takes time and work to talk about it, figure it out, find a solution. But although we do good work together, there are times where we have a great idea when we're in sync, in line. We start the project and then something happens and we're not on the same page, and it shows, right? We submitted something. The reviewer said, wonderful idea, but here's some gaps. And because of those gaps, and then honestly, well, I don't know if there are major gaps, but I think they were significant enough for us for it not to be accepted, right? And the second thing I will say, what was it? What was your last point?
I think that it was around choosing to go high when they go low.
Yeah, that's a choice. I think that we have choices, and although, yes, that's the point. Yes, we have received emails and believe folks are trying it. And when you are in the thick of it, I have found I know myself. When I believe someone is trying to go into a typing war, I probably give them 2 emails where I would go back and forth with them. And I'm very direct, very clear, in my opinion. But there are times where I read it, I hear myself typing, and I will show you or others and ask you, like, how does it sound? Like, I do want to be clear, like you said, but I don't want to be harsh and rude and hateful, right? That's not my intent is not that, because at the end of the day, I'm focused on the goal, and I believe this message will get us there. Like, I don't want anyone to lose sight of that. Because at the end of the day, the people that we're writing, whether it's a client, a colleague, a team member, or family, whoever it is, like, we are still on the same team. We're trying to get to the same destination. So let's not lose sight of that. Although we may believe that our paths are right, and trying to figure out which one is best. But like I remember last episode you said that you are in a season of letting it go. I'm not there yet. I still will go to bat toe to toe, but I have realized over the weeks is like there are some things even this week, like I'm just not going to stand on the table and shake it. I'm not going to even. Could I win the battle? Yes, but what's the point? And I think you have to make that decision.
Yeah. I got to think through this metaphor you just gave. Stand on the table and shake it puts one image in my mind, but then there's another one of like, stand.
And I already know where you're going. So
standing on, I think you mean stand on the table, like standing on table. My doctoral advisor used to tell me, Don Creamer, he's still alive. He used to tell me, Terrell, just remember this: when you get out into your career, everything is not a stand on the table issue. All the time he would say that. Just remember, when you get out there, don't make everything a stand on the table issue. Don't make everything a stand on the table issue. As I got closer to the end of my doctorate one day, he said, hey, Terrell, but there will be stand on the table issues. And your job is to know the difference, right? There are going to be some things that are worth fighting for, that are worth writing for, that are worth pushing for, right? that are worth using your network. Having a conversation with one of my colleagues this week about, in today's time of a gig economy, the uncertainty of the government and the uncertainty of the world, you got to have an A and a B plan. What happens if A fails? You got to have a B. Nowadays, we live in a world where you got to have an A, B, C, D, and an E kind of plan in your pocket, because you just don't know what will tomorrow hold. And sometimes that will mean you got to, knock down doors or reach out to your networks and the like. But everything's not a stand on the table issue for you. Some things are. And when they are, be willing to use your words, not your fists, and fight for them, advocate for others, not just yourself. Like you said about your colleague who you were able to speak up for. How do I say this? Okay. So something happened yesterday. I know I told you about it. I think I told you about it. If not, I'm gonna tell you after the show. And someone said something, I'm sure this is a very human, if not, put it in the chat. It's not human, Terrell, but I think this is a human feeling that you want someone to speak up for you, especially in rooms where you're not present. Right. And I've had a couple of moments where I wondered, what was the conversation about me in that room? And the universe just blessed me yesterday to where I got to bear witness to someone defending me. When someone said something like, this person was just moving along and just overlooked me and just ignored me and, pretended like I wasn't there, and they were so rude and whatever. And I know that wasn't my intention. That's not my personality or my identity. And a person who I already had respect for, but man, I doubled down on respect for, spoke up and said, nah, he would never do that. I know him. It's not like him. Either he didn't see you or whatever, but he has been this, he has been that. The one thing he has not been is rude. He's been consistent. He's a good person. And I fought back tears for about 5 seconds, just because who doesn't want somebody to not feed into the joke, even if you're joking, you know what I'm saying? Like we all want somebody who won't feed into that joke, or who won't perpetuate that narrative, who will stop it and say, nah, don't even sound like him. Sunday, you said I can preach then. So I remember one time TD Jakes had this sermon, and in the middle of his sermon, he said he was so tired of people, sort of lying on him, the phrase you used earlier. And he said, somebody told one of his members that they thought he was rude because they saw him at the hospital, and they tried to stop him and asked him if he would come and pray for their loved one, blah, 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 blah. And he was sort of cold, dismissive, and walking off. And in his sermon, he said something like, but what they didn't tell you is I was going to that hospital to see my own parent. And I wasn't going as Bishop Jakes, I was going as a son, and that he was beelining to the room where his family was. And he said, when he remembers the person, he remembers them stopping him, asking him for a picture and a prayer. He said, and you know what I wanted to tell them? And he just kind of like went there, right, for a second. He said, but when his member told him, he didn't get mad at the person who circulated the story. He got mad at his member for not speaking up for him and saying, first of all, that does not even sound like my pastor. He is this, he's that, there must have been an excuse for it. Anyway, I think sometimes I'm glad that we do have colleagues, like you said about your own self, who sometimes will say, you know what, I know they're not here, but they didn't do that. Oh, I know they're not here, but they didn't drop that ball. Hey, this is not fair. They're not here to speak up for themselves. I think we need to pause this conversation until they're here to provide more context.
No, I agree. I think that even though the person that I stood up for, it's not a bad relationship. It's a pretty cordial relationship. But I just thinking about it, right? Like thinking about if someone was talking about you and no one spoke up for you, like there is no way that I could not say something about it and address it, because again, like these are they depend on this job. Right. That mistake could have been so fatal where they lost their job.
Yep.
Over a lie. And we have evidence to prove that it was not them. And not to mention, they're not even aware that the conversation or interaction transpired and they were involved, but not present. Like, I think that if you are in the room and you know the truth, speak up.
Yeah.
And tell the truth, because at the end of the day, one, it's just unfortunate that people do it. But I know that if that was me, I would hope someone would stand up for me and say something.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier about technology and the fact that we have technologies that do time stamps or timekeeping and the like, if I understand your point, if I'm right about your point. I just learned, and it's a safe space, so don't y'all be out there judging me in listening world. But I just learned that all caps is like really, really bad. Did you know that?
Well, I didn't know, because I use all caps. Anytime I look, I'm gonna tell y'all right now. Anytime I use the word "not," it's probably gonna be in all caps.
Right, me too. Well, it used to be.
Well, you already know who I learned it from, but I'm going to use all caps every time. Every time I say "not," it's in all caps. But I know through your experience that someone has told you, or people have told you, that it's yelling at them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's what they said. That in fact, if I'm not mistaken, y'all in the listening audience, tell us if you've ever heard this before and what's your experience with using all caps. But they said, like, it can be, someone can use it as sort of evidence of, hostility in the workplace, is because you used all caps with them. And I thought, well, so now what I do, and you can attest to this because you've been on some of these, is I'll say, hey, all caps not, or all caps whatever, in the parentheses for emphasis, not yelling. And I've started doing that just so that people will know, like, I'm not trying to all caps and scream and yell. But what do you think?
I mean,
Kenny said, yeah, it's a form of yelling.
Not too much. I think that listen. Yeah, listen, if people perceive it that way, then it's not something that we can't change. Well, only reason why all caps are yelling disrespect. Jeez,
Dr. Whitty, the results are in. Everybody coming in saying we can't do it.
Well,
yeah. And for those of y'all saying yes, yelling and disrespect, do y'all use it? You don't use all caps then, unless you are trying to yell and.
Well, my thing is this: I use it so you don't miss it, right? I don't want you to. It's an emphasis. I want you to make sure. People, we skim when we read. We have a ton of emails coming through, and there may be times we read something and don't see something that is, to me, that word is very important there. But I think for me, and I'm going to change. I'm going to tell you right now. I'm not going to use all caps. I'm going to find something else. Probably italics or underline, bold. Now we can't use bold now because that's check. Y'all gonna stop playing with my writing. But I think that when I think about or perceive things as yelling, it's pretty much like the full sentences all caps. Like, I think that's unnecessary. But when there's a word,
single word,
I don't necessarily perceive that as all caps. But if the people do, then let me jump on the train and not get left.
That could be the case. I mean, maybe that's different if it's a single word versus a whole entire note in all caps. One whole thing in all caps. Usually I associate that with either. I hardly ever think a person is yelling at me. I mean, I have had a time where a person has written a note to me in all caps and they were yelling, but usually I think of this as a person who just keeps the cap keys on and types and probably doesn't use a computer very much. But I wouldn't think of that as intentional. But that said, I think technology has been helpful for giving us multiple ways of communicating. You caught yourself when you talked about bold, because unfortunately, I wrote something to my president and I used a mix of bold. I intentionally used a mix of bold and italics. And when we talked about it one time, he was like, Strayhorn, this is Chat GPT. I was like, it's not. I definitely did. Ask Chat, did it write it? It did tell you it didn't write it. And I said, why would you think that? And he was like, well, people are starting to associate bold and italics and the hyphen as a marker of Chat GPT generation. If you notice, if you use Chat GPT in the listening audience, but it does do that a lot. It'll use the M dash. It will do bold or italics. So I've been trying to intentionally avoid some of that just to keep it back and make sure that people understand it's authentic writing. But then, sometimes I'll subject stuff to these originality tests just so I can make sure it's going to pass muster, because I'm like, I know I wrote it, but I really do need the italics and the bold in there for it to stand out. But I do think between font enhancements like bold, italics, and underline, all caps, and emojis and icons, it's helping us give some emotion to writing. Whereas you used to write a message, you'd be like, do it now. You don't know if that's a command, if it's a statement, if it's a question, is it mean, is it terse, in what spirit are you telling me to do that? But now you can use a laughing emoji or use LOL or, call me back in bold when you're available. All these things I think really do help with communication, not just in life, but also even in the workplace. And those are things that I use when communicating with my colleagues and trying to help people understand, like, hey, hear my tone when I'm saying these things.
So you brought up another point, and that's emojis in notes and messages. What are your thoughts about that?
The use of them?
Mm-hmm.
So tell me the scenario. Is it professional writing? Is it personal writing? Is it academic writing? Is it, you think,
Well,
workplace?
I would say workplace. Yeah. Professional. Well, not all messages have to be professional, but
yeah,
I believe that, I think conversational is appropriate, but let's just say professional for the sake of conversation.
Yeah, I love it. So, if I'm writing to you, if I'm writing to my, and in my professional work, I work in academic leadership. I'm a professor and I work in academic centers. That captures pretty much all of it. And I'll come to the consulting work separately. But in my university roles, when speaking to students, my faculty who report to me, and maybe my peers who organizational chart wise are like on my level, I usually feel very free to use a more conversational approach. I use contractions. I will use emojis. I will use parentheses to put laughing, LOL, smile here. I'll give it some character or personality because they're used to interacting with me. And I hope that that's consistent with who they know me to be, right? At my supervisor level and above, I usually lose the conversational tone. It's much more business tone, less likely to have emojis, not impossible, but less likely to have emojis, especially in like emails, certainly not in reports and written documents or policies. Now, if I'm on text with my supervisor or my president, I might say something differently than I might on a text or on an email on a report. But I would say at my supervisor level and above, probably on average, far more business professional. And at my peer level and those who work up with me, much more casual conversational. What about you?
Well, I think because of where I work now, I am more cautious and aware of it. I think that there have been conversation about the use of emoji. There are some who are all for it. That is a particular age group. And there are others who are absolutely against it. For me, and I noticed it today, someone sent me something and it had 7 or 8 emojis in there. And I was like, you know, I think that's tacky. I think sometimes the emojis can get in the way of the message, versus using it sparingly to kind of add some character and personality to it. But I think that, when I do use it, really no more than 2. I think once I get to 3, 4, I think that's just too much. I think for me, from my lens, I think it is. I just think that it's just doing too much at that point. Like, I think that you're just trying too hard to put a lot of emojis in there. So I think it's clean when you use 1 or 2 that when they're appropriate.
Yeah. So let's catch up because we got some stuff in the chat. We got questions coming in. We got to wrap up. So I don't remember where I was. I think this one, Dr. Whitty said, recently I had to educate a family member who used all caps during a family committee meeting. Her intention was not disrespect. However, some heated fellowship ensued. Wow. Yeah. I think, listen, when my colleague told me, I think I sent an email with all caps, some words in all caps, or maybe I told her about it. And she was like, she has a background in HR. And she said, ooh, why are you using all caps? You mad? I was like, no, for emphasis. She said, oh no, all caps is yelling. And then told me the other parts of that story. So I had to think about how am I being perceived? Because everybody's experience with it is very different. Some people are intentionally trying to yell, and as Dr. Whitty said, show disrespect. Some other people are not. So I think this is something that we have to think about. And here's the other thing is, listen, you got 2 people on the screen who are saying we use all caps and we are not yelling and disrespectful or trying to yell and be disrespectful. So while we are willing to be more mindful going forward about using all caps, y'all help us help people like us and tell people, say, hey, everybody don't use caps to yell. You might want to ask them, what's the purpose of your all caps? Maybe it's for emphasis. Maybe it's because I was afraid you'd miss the date of this event, or that it was in the library now, not the cafeteria. I don't know. But I think those are some of the reasons why we have used it in the past. And it is important. I want to do a quick poll, and then we can come back, answer any questions, and get ready to shut it down. So if you all will check this out. We've been talking about workplace communication. So which of these best describes communication at your job? It could be current job, past job, your job, any job. Just think about it. When you generally think about your career, what kind of communication are you most familiar with getting? Is it A, clear and open? You can drop it in the chat. B, mixed. It depends on who you're talking to. Is it C, confusing or inconsistent generally? Or D, what communication? We ain't got no communication at work. Which one is it? Put it in the chat. A, B, C, D, or E, all of the above, and we're going to talk about it. Friend, which one describes your history of workplace
history? Yeah, there you go. History, because I know somebody going to try to come for me on Monday. So history of my work, I would say E, all the above. I think there have been places where I have been at institutions where the communication was clear and open. I mean, everyone was transparent with each other. There were no secrets. I think also that really was able to happen because of the relationships that we had. They were strong. There have been places where they're mixed depending on who's talking. I think when there's people that you see daily, you tend to build meaningful relationships with, and you're able to talk openly and transparently and feel safe in those spaces. And then there are other rooms where you are not as open because you don't really have that relationship with them. See, abso-freaking-lutely. I do believe that there are times where people are very confusing. They don't even know what they're doing, what they're talking about, but they are running the meeting or trying to tell people what to do or how to get information, but they're so confusing, they're confusing you. Indeed, what communication? I think I've shared on the show and in other spaces and places where there was no communication, just because that people weren't able to see past their differences, and they thought it was just best to not talk at all.
You did a nice job there. You took us through all of them. I mean, I think it's probably true. And I'll be honest, I probably have not worked at a place, no critique to anybody, where communication has always consistently been clear and open. I think I've had, some places, maybe a person, maybe a supervisor, maybe a co-worker who our communication has been clear and open. I just say that because I think sometimes people leave jobs looking for greener grass, greener pastures, thinking it's going to be better to the left, better to the right, better in the PWIs, better in the HBCUs, better in the nonprofits, better in the for-profits, better in the big companies, better in the small companies, better in your own companies. And it's just usually not the case. I mean, every place got some challenges, right? And we're humans, and so humans are imperfect beings. Therefore, some communication is going to be clear and open, direct. Some of it's going to be mixed, depending on who you're talking to. That's what Dr. Whitty put in the chat. Some certainly had some where it's been confusing and inconsistent. I remember a work situation where I literally had a person who reported to me who often, I remember thinking, like, why do we even have meetings? Why do we have conversations? Because it's like literally every single time I thought we had reached consensus or agreement and we knew exactly what to do, I would find out the opposite, not the opposite, but something different happened, right? But it's because communication was generally confusing, inconsistent. They were often distracted when meeting with me. And, quite frankly, language was a barrier. So, for instance, I might say, hey, we're going to have the recruitment event on Saturday in the parking lot. And then I would come to the campus and find that they had set up all the recruitment tables in the open field. And I'm like, parking lot, field. What happened? And, when I said parking lot, rather than ask, do I mean the actual parking lot? Do I mean an open lot? Is it firmly this place, or is there room for it to be? So by the time I got to ask them questions, they would say, oh, well, I thought about it. The tables would be uneven on the rocky ground in the parking lot. And so I moved it to the open lot because it was going to be grass. And plus I figured, people want to lay out, since we're going to have the food, they can lay out and have their food and we can have a picnic. And I thought, yeah, I get it. I get how you got where you went, but that's not what we discussed, right? So having the opportunity to ask questions. And then also as a supervisor, I've also learned to say, hey, repeat back to me. So are we clear on what's going to happen? Let's go back through it one more time. Tell me what you're walking away with. So what should I expect when I get here on Saturday? Those kinds of things have been helpful for helping people have conversation that's more clear, more open, and less confusing and inconsistent. All right, so it's Q&A time, and I got good news. We got a question in the chat. So if y'all got questions, drop them in the chat. I'll let you tackle this first, friend. I'll present it. So I work on a team with, all generations, baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, keep it going. We all communicate differently. Some prefer long emails, others use emojis and DMs like y'all were talking about. How do you bridge these gaps so everyone feels heard and respected?
Well, that's a good one. I think that, for me personally, I have learned over the course of my career to be brief, concise, clear, concise, all the C words, just cut across the field, get the point out there. But I also have worked with folks who prefer very detailed, thorough, and long emails. So what I do is, honestly, I probably do the most. I split them. I know that at the end of the day, everyone's getting the same essentially the same message, but one may be more detailed and drawn out than the other. So there are folks that I've worked with who prefer a detailed, thorough email. I'll send that to them. And then I would take that same message, cut a lot out of it, put kind of the highlights, and send that email to the folks who, just tell me what I need to do. I don't need to know anything else. And I'll send that directly to them. There are some folks who prefer DMs or, only want you to write them via Teams. We use Teams. I don't know any other thing. Is Slack a thing too?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Only want you to communicate that way. And again, now if I'm writing you in Teams, I'm telling you right now, you're probably gonna get only 2 sentences out of me. So, and those are people who also want kind of brief messages as well. So, at the end of the day, everyone is unique. They have different preferences. I personally just try to meet them. Now, if there's ever a time where I think there are too many demands and too many differences, you get what you get. You say thank you for it. So that's kind of how I approach it.
Love it. I think it's a good question because, we've talked about this on the show, probably need to talk about it again, get one of our guests to come and join us on it, about workplace generational differences and how we have workplaces now. So you're exactly right. We've got workplaces now that bring, I think that's probably 5 or 6 generations together, right? People who are brand new into the workforce, just hitting 18, all the way up to those who are near the age of retirement. And we're all different in a lot of different ways, certainly in how we communicate. And it can be a challenge to know how to get the message across. And so to your question, I think I bridge the gaps, one, just by keeping that in mind as a supervisor, as a manager, as a leader, as a professor, as a communicator, right? I've got to appreciate the fact that my audience receives information very differently. So therefore, I try to package it differently. Like sometimes you and I will talk about the fact that it's a challenge, right? To write the paper, do the keynote and the podcast, to add the blog, to do the newsletter, to turn the newsletter and the paper and the blog into a video reel, right? To have the infographic. That's 6 different things. It's one message communicated 6, 7 different ways. Why? Because one will hit Generation Z, one will hit the baby boomers, one will hit Generation X, one will hit those, like even in my role leading a school, I love technology, and we have a Microsoft Teams, it's called a team, where you can post comments, you can post documents, you can share files. It's a whole little cluster just for our school. But all of my faculty, full-time and part-time, all of my students are not plugged in there, right? I do use it as one communication channel, but I add to it email, I add to it newsletter, I add to it social media, I add to it a text message group. And you won't be surprised that still some messages don't get received, because I didn't print it out for the person who needs it printed out and put in their mailbox. We still got those. So to the question, it takes a lot of effort. I'm not saying that you had to do it all. I think depending on your role, your responsibility, the responsibility becomes greater or different. But certainly because we've got all these generations interacting differently, we have to use different approaches. And speaking of different approaches, they said they're not putting this in the chat. I don't care what you say. You ain't gonna call me out at work tomorrow. All right, here's the second question. Sometimes I need to correct a coworker or team member, but I worry it'll come across as criticism instead of help. Maybe our last question of the night. Any tips for communicating feedback more effectively? You hear the question?
Yep. Where you got to go, first of all?
You said I gotta go?
I said, where you gotta go? Cutting off the podcast.
No, I mean I'm good, but I'm just saying, like, I didn't know if you wanted to keep going, if you gotta.
No, I'm good. I think that, this is something that actually asked you, right? There was something that was going on about communication that students were receiving. Someone wrote me and a team member saying that, this is an issue that we're seeing. They made some comment that was confusing, and I responded to them trying to, bring clarity to the situation so we can move forward. I think that it's how you package your words, how you phrase certain things. What I like to do is the sandwich method. Is I like to kind of praise or show appreciation, then maybe a new sentence or next paragraph stating, here is something that I see that we can improve on to be better. I think we have to use we, us, and our, so it's not personal or attacking someone or they feel judged. I try to be very mindful of the word choices I use. And then end it with, I really do appreciate what you do for the team. I value your work. I think that, and I'm not trying to be mushy or try to butter them up or blow smoke up there, but it's like I really do appreciate them. I think that their work truly matters. Without them, we wouldn't be where we are. We wouldn't go where we want to go. So packaging it, I think people really do. No one wants to just be criticized and downplayed and pushed to the side. Like tell them, here's the things that you do really well in. I appreciate the work that you're doing. I think that, one of the things I wrote recently is someone, try to write an email or text something, communication to students. And it needed work. But I told them, thank you for jumpstarting this project. I really appreciate you getting us off the ground for something to work with. Let's come together and think about how we can communicate with these families. Ended it with, again, I really appreciate the work that you did. Looking forward to meeting with you soon.
Yep.
That's a soft, but it gets the point across.
Yeah, I mean, it's not accusatory, and you're kind of, it's not calling people, just use this phrase, it's not calling people out rather than it's calling people in, right? It's like bringing them into the solution or bringing them in for a conversation. I would only add, I do similar things that you talked about, of course. I use my words. I love, and this, most of our academic family know this. And most of my folks who have worked on my teams know this. I prefer short, concise versus long, super long and elaborate. It is easy to become overwhelmed with an email, a Slate message, a Teams message. I like when I see it and it starts to be 3, 4, 5 paragraphs, my heart starts racing just because, you got to think about the average person has millions of thoughts in a day. And they've got hundreds of emails in a day, and you just can't consume. And we've got music on the way to work, and we've got news flashing before our eyes, and we're scrolling through our phones. Look at all the information we're trying to manage in a single day. And then we add to it with these long, elaborate emails with 6 or 7 different parts. No, not me. I try to get it down to one sentence, one word, one phrase. And if I know I cannot, especially if it's something like I'm trying to offer constructive feedback, I'm trying to offer help, I'm worried about how it will be received, I will, keep it shorter and say things like you said, thanks for jump starting this. Thanks for getting this started. Thanks for sharing this with me. I noticed that part B, doesn't reflect what we discussed last week. I noticed part B doesn't highlight all of the accomplishments we had this quarter. I noticed that part B doesn't really capture what I heard the president say, and or what's in my notes. So I'm going to offer the following bullet points to see if you can incorporate them, or would love to hop on a meeting. By now, my messages don't say video screen. I'm so tired of video meetings. I'm just tired of them. I'm tired of them. I'm tired of them. So I'll say hop on the phone or hop on audio only, something, and let's just hammer this out, right? So I'll do that, bullet my little points, put my TLS, send. And hopefully that will be enough for them to know, like, hey, it's coming from a good place. I'm just trying to be helpful, not trying to attack. Here's some bullet points. You can incorporate it or not. The other way, and I think this is something I know we both use, and we may not have thought about it, but another way we can offer feedback in a way that's helpful and less likely to be immediately taken as criticism is technology. It's the power of track changes, where you just go into something and use the suggestions or the review button, the editing button, and just make the changes for them, so that all they really got to do is go through and see the change you made and accept all, and it's done, right? It's not like I have to do more extra work or whatever. So I'm offering the help. I'm not saying this is wrong and this is wrong and this is out of place and this needs to be moved. We're doing that. We're showing you where it should go with you. And I just did that for a doctoral student whose dissertation I was supervising, or I am supervising, and went in and gave a lot of feedback. But I think, it was taken as constructive and helpful, partly because I had the explanation. It was in the posture and tone we're talking about, but it also wasn't hard for them to do because through track changes, I'd already suggested the changes. Mm-hmm. And now, anything you all do any tips for communicating feedback more effectively, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll put them on the screen. Thanks for those questions. So what you think? How you feeling?
Much better. Like you said earlier, I was agitated, aggravated, and annoyed. But through conversation and hearing these questions and answering them, much better. I think that hopefully offered you something that you can use tomorrow. And I hope you all have a wonderful week.
Listen, so y'all know how we do this. Getting toward the end of the show, don't be afraid this week to do something. If you're going to do something big, do something grand. If it's your birthday, celebrate it. But most importantly, when you go out here, do something good. If you are at a coffee shop, be willing to pay for somebody's coffee behind you or in front of you. If you are getting ready to cross the street, look around you, see if there's a little kid or aging adult who you can help across the street. If you see someone struggling to get their groceries in the house, pull over, park your car or park your bike, run up the steps and help them get inside. Do something good. The world needs it. The world is in need of more light and more good. But most importantly, don't be afraid to do something good. And we call it Do Good Work. Till next week. Peace.
Thank you for tuning in to Do Good Work Podcast. We hope you found today's conversation informative, uplifting, and insightful. Don't forget to like and share this episode with your networks. Follow us on social media at Do Good Work on X, formerly Twitter, for real-time updates, behind-the-scenes content, and so much more. Until next time, friends, don't be afraid to do something, but do something good. Do good work. Thank you for tuning in to Do Good Work Podcast. We hope you found today's conversation informative, uplifting, and insightful.